Well, simply put, the effect he has had on sports broadcasting is best described by his first name. It's Major. Now, he's not going to be the one to tell you that because he's too humble, but Major Howe joins me on the On to Something podcast, a sports media podcast. And of course, Major is Associate AD Production at UCF. He has done so many great things over the years with ESPN and beyond. And we're going to not only tell the last name, the how behind what he has done, but we're going to learn the personal side. So we're going to get a full spectrum, panoramic look, Major, of your life. I know you've watched a bunch of these, so I really appreciate you joining as well.
It's an honor. I know it's a long list of people that I've seen on your podcast, and I'm just happy to be at the bottom of it.
Well, did I say humility? So there we go. Right off the top, we've got the humility.
I'm jumping over the bar.
You are. Now, you said you're at the bottom, but when I was looking at some of your social media, you got in a helicopter and that took you off the bottom. So you went on a helicopter ride. I saw this. What is it like for you in a helicopter?
Scary. I think it's anytime don't have your feet on the ground, you're a little nervous. So taking that from a flying nut as well. But I think anytime you do anything that's new, it's challenging. It's going to scare you a little bit, but that's part of living. It's stepping outside your comfort zone and going and enjoying something, even if it's something unique and new. So
how are you so good at embracing the unknown, the unexpected, and using that as a really important mechanism towards your success in the industry?
I think if it's like anything else, you expect change, then you embrace it. If you don't accept it, then you fight it, and it makes it more difficult. And so there's only so many things we can control. We all talk about that, what we can control, what we can't control. And I tell everybody the only constant in this business is change, technology and models. And sports in general, we went to dual feeds and Remy's and all these things that happen. And you can sit there and complain and argue and fight it. But you know what? If I want to work, I better embrace it, and I better figure out how to continue to contribute and be a part of that as it changes.
When you're a part of your family at home, what is putting up with Major like at the house?
Ooh, you'd have to ask all the girls. I'm sure challenging at times. As most of us know, when we travel a lot, you come home and they have a routine that they're set into when I'm gone, and then when I come home, I'm disruptive because I mess up their routine. And we like certain things, but I think that's part of the blessing and the curse of being able to do what we do, in that it affords us the opportunity to do special things, but it also takes away from some of the family time. So I think there's that balance, and so it's trying to find the opportunities to make memories with my daughter, especially, and with my wife, but at the same time, they know that I may be gone for periods of time, and they know where I'm at, they know what I'm doing, but it's a trade-off, it's a challenge, and I think. Like I said, more times than not, when I'm at home, I'm probably a disruptive than I am a blessing to them, but messing them up.
How hard is it for you, because you're on the go, you're doing so many great things at UCF and beyond, for you to sit still?
Extremely. I've always said I'm a workaholic. I've always said I'm not the most talented guy in the world. I've been blessed, but I also try to be the first in, last out. And I'm going to outwork you. Nobody's going to outwork me. And that's probably been the biggest thing that I've tried to instill, that I'm not the 6'5" model. I don't have the deep pipes, and I'm not going to be the most creative, but I'm going to try, and I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to do everything I can to succeed, or at least accomplish a task.
How early on was that motto instilled in you?
I don't know if it was instilled in me as much as I just, you play sports growing up. That's what we fell in love with, and baseball and football, and I wrestled and I did all those things. And you go through these things and you see people that are better, and a lot of times it's humbling, but it's also you fight the things that you're trying to fight, whether you want to be the shortstop or the second baseman, or you want to play basketball, or you want to play football, or whatever the sport is. And I think that was part of it, that a lot of my coaches, they talk about, you can't coach heart, you can't coach desire. And I think it applies not only to sports but in life. You can't coach somebody that was so driven and so passionate about something, that wants to do something, and it doesn't matter what they look like, or where they come from, or what kind of educational background they have. If somebody wants to do something, you're going to find a way. And I think there's a lot of success stories in the world like that, of people that just keep pushing and pushing and pushing until they find their own success, or the definition of the success for themselves.
How did you keep pushing and pushing, continue to do that when you were at Bedford North Lawrence High School?
Actually, that's what got started. So that was the fun. You went way back. The, the so I got started in this, really was with the church, which was, my stepdad was a pastor, and we started in Florida, and he was part of a mega church down here way back in the day. And so I learned and started doing audio boards, and the designer of the system and the guy that ran the audio boards was a big time deal at Disney here. And so I walked around just emulating what he would do, and just asking questions and doing whatever I could do. And then when we moved to Indiana, the reality of it is, the blessing and the curse was Indiana. That was the curse. The blessing was, I Bedford North Lawrence at the time had a gentleman by the name of Damon Bailey, who was the second coming of Larry Bird, and they had a class that was television production that I could take as a student. But more importantly, what we were able to do was, because you could not buy tickets to his home games, 5,000 seat high school gym, sold out, we were able to put on for cable access these broadcasts. And so I had a kid by the name of Todd Goins, a friend of mine, that he would do play by play and I would do color. We'd alternate each game, and we still had no idea what we were doing, but we would get, that's what kind of got the bug, doing games for Damon Bailey. And then from there, I thought it was radio. Nobody tells you about sports production. In rural Indiana, it's news stations and radios and all this other stuff. So I wanted to be a play-by-play like you. And I went to college, and I did radio and DJing and everything I could possibly do. But I kept getting rejected from all the different news stations in the Midwest. And when I finally graduated college, a friend of mine connected me with somebody at Sunshine Network, and I was able to get an interview for the internship. And like I said, I walked in with I know what I'm doing. I'm going to be the king of the world. And I remember sitting down, and I said, the first question was, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be play by play. No, you don't. I go, yeah, I'm pretty sure I do. I've been DJing and doing this and doing that. And they're like, no, you don't know what you don't know. And so I had the opportunity, actually, the full circle is, I was told to go watch a basketball game, and it happened to be at UCF. And I sat in the truck, and for 2 hours, I don't think I ever closed my mouth. I don't think I ever blinked. I sat there and watched. And at the end of it, I was like, all right, I know what I want to do. And back then you had to page somebody. So I paged the person that interviewed me a couple times. And finally, a couple days later, she got back to me, and she goes, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a producer. She's like, why is that? And I said, I don't need anybody yelling at me like that for 2 hours if I'm doing play by play. So, and back then you had the screamers, you had the yellers, but I knew what I wanted to do. And so I got lucky and got the internship, and was able to learn more in 6 weeks of an internship than I did in all my years of college, because it was sports production, and it was, they all, nothing against the academic side of it, but they didn't know. They were teaching you to be a newscaster. They were teaching you to sit in a studio and watch your camera move a little bit, but that was it. And I wanted to do sports. And so now here I am as an intern, sitting courtside with Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway and the Magic. And this is '96. So Michael Jordan's coming through, and I'm running cables, and I'm doing all this kind of stuff, but that's the greatest thing in the world. And I'm getting paid $75 a day. That's a bonus. So, I think once you find what it is that you want to do, and I was lucky enough to find it early on, you just find a way. And I got blessed in some of the things at the time that I didn't agree with, but I think, that's the journey. That's what helps mold you. That's what helps drive you. That's what helps you to succeed. And I was actually telling somebody the other day, if you go back to B&L and everybody on our yearbook, and I don't have it, but I'm pretty sure most likely to succeed was Damon Bailey. Most likely to, make it to the NBA was Damon Bailey. And Damon, to this day, is a great gentleman. I'm not friends with him, but we've crossed paths a couple times over the years. But honestly, I can tell I've been to more NBA games than he has, and I haven't made as much money as he did because he got drafted in the second round by the Pacers back in the day. But I've done more games, and my career's been longer than his. And to me, that's a value and success story as much as anything else.
When you mentioned the interview you had was at the internship lead in, and the person discouraged you from play by play, why did they do that?
Uh, well, I jokingly say she knew what I'd look like as I got older, and so
Oh
she
God.
saving me from the embarrassment of being in front of a camera. I look much better in a truck when the next to the dumpsters and the portalettes and the dark rooms. I think it's. I tell a lot of people now, it's not being a play-by-play person is so specific, but it's like being a quarterback on an NFL team. You know, there's only 32 of them, and there's hundreds and thousands of people that are going to be shooting for those positions. And I think she was lucky enough that she saw in me somebody that could do more than just play by play, and had the ability to do a little bit more. And um, I think there was something that I hope or I believe that she saw me doing something and having a little bit more versatility. But I also think that it was the I don't say decision, but it's a little bit of God's hand and destiny that said, "Hey, you see what else is here. You might like something a little more because you've only been exposed to this." And that's one of the things, especially here at UCF, I tell my students, I'll expose you to everything. You can come in saying you want to run camera, but if once you get exposure, you like replay better, that's fine. That's what college is about. And I don't think I ever got that. And I think with her guidance and with her help, I did everything from crewing to booking satellites to logging all the back there were digibetas. People will remember those. Uh, logging all the tapes and making the highlights and doing all those kind of things. And I think she saw something that I wasn't exposed to, so she knew I would gravitate towards something different once I was exposed to it.
If we were exposed to one of your play by play calls, what is
Ho-
it going to sound like?
Horrible.
Why do you say that?
Um, because I believe that like anything else, any craft, the more you do it, the better you get. And I think when I started out being self-taught, I don't think I was that good. Even from the producer side of things, we've gone through these cycles with productions and so forth, where you're trying to make these long highlights, so now you're being a little bit quicker. And I think it's anything else. If you do it 100 times, your 100 times going to be better than your first time. And so for a high school kid that didn't know what he was doing, I think they're probably entertaining. For a professional, I think they would be like, please bury it somewhere. But luckily, they're all on or VHSs and digibetas, and I don't think they'll ever survive the transfer over. So they're lost.
Nothing's tempting you to go in there and maybe digitize those?
No, no, I I enjoy the memories. I don't need to relive them, but I embrace the fact that it's the journey that got to me where I am. So, um, a couple of times I've put on headsets, fax out audio and do different things, and I'm blessed and I'm happy where I'm at. I think it's the perfect spot. So
What
I
make
don't need to be in front of the camera, that's for sure.
well, just for a small couple of minutes, it's great to have you in front of the camera. But what makes for you a memory worth reliving?
Mm, wow. So I told you you ask good questions. Um,
Well, it's only because I like to listen to you. It's I so much of what I love and what I do is listening to you. And that's allows us to go and create this organic space where wherever we go is wherever we go. It's going to be
Right.
great.
Right. No, I get it. And that's the part that sometimes we get into a flow and but you ask a question and it makes you stop and it makes you think and it makes you go, okay, wait a minute. Because I don't have all the answers, and that's the fun part. To me, a memory is a documentation of a moment that's unique in itself, but it can be anything. I guess the best example I can give is um, my daughter graduated from high school, and we planned a big trip, and she was being a little bit of a pill on the trip, on it being a typical teenager. And I remember we were in Venice. We did a whole thing in Europe, and we were in Venice, and it was one of those days. And I don't want to do this, I want to do that, and I looked at her and I said, you know what? I don't care, because for the rest of your life, no matter what you do, you're going to have to tell that man or your partner or your friends that it was your dad that took you first to London, that took you first to Paris, that took you first to Venice. And when you tell them that, I'm going to remember we're walking around Venice right now. I'm going to remember that we were just on a boat. And you're going to remember it as well, because this is a life memory. And you choose to view it your way. I'm going to choose to view it my way. So my daughter, being the quick study that she is 5 years later, uh, did the same to me, where a couple of weeks ago we did, um, I'm a big Cowboys fan. We went to see the Cowboys play Seattle in Dallas. And it was the first NFL game that I had done as a fan at AT&T Stadium. And when she gave it to me, she just looked at me and she goes, Dad, I'm going to be your first. And that to me told me that I made the memory. And that to me is the stuff that I'm going to remember. And those are the things that I think as I look, it's special. And somebody else might not get it, but that's my perception. That's my memory. That's my moment. And it may be different for the 66,000 other people that are at the Cowboys game that night against Seattle. But to me, I'm sitting next to my daughter, who's my first taking me to a football game at AT&T as a fan.
What did it take for her to come around like that?
Time. I think that's, we all do. I mean, the older we get, the more we realize that, we didn't know everything when we were 22 and 27 and 30 and 35 and everything else. And um, I tell a lot of people, my students especially, is, it's time, but it's experience. Experience is the hardest teacher, but it's the best teacher. And the only way you get through something is you experience it. And sometimes I experience failure. Failure will stick with you harder and longer than success does. But I think it's her realizing and going through life and learning the different things, but experiencing life and taking the time. And so um, we all have our aha moments. I don't think she still had it, but she's got a couple of them. They're smaller though.
You two have been to a lot of concerts together. What's the
Yeah.
most memorable? There's got to be a memory that you can relive. You two at a concert.
Um, there's a bunch actually. The youngest one I remember was we were in Baton Rouge. We went to Tiger Stadium. I think she was 8 or 9, and she was white cowgirl hat, brown cowgirl dress, white boots. It was a 2-day super fest, and second night the headliner was Taylor Swift, and so we're there, and we have a wonderful time. And afterwards, my wife and I, my wife's in the business as well. We kind of knew Tiger Stadium really well from being there multiple times. We kind of knew where everybody would be parked at, so we go walking down there. And she walks up to the gate, and she's sitting there, and she's looking over, and she's like, "When's Taylor coming? When's Taylor coming?" And this was the final act, was this whole shower and the water coming down on Taylor, and she'd gotten all wet and everything else. We expected her to come by quickly and everything. And so there's this 8-year-old little girl over the bicycle rack, and this guy walks up, starts talking to her, and I'm just behind her, and I said, he goes, "You a Taylor fan?" He said, "Yeah, yeah. It's not going to be coming this way for a while, and I don't want you to stand here and be disappointed. So here's a guitar pick. but she's got some things that she needs to do, and she's going to be tied up. And I don't want you to sit here and get frustrated, but we appreciate your fan. And he walks away. She looks at me and she looks at it. And she goes, "Can we wait a little bit?" I go, "Well, you can, but you know who you just met?" She goes, "No." I said, "That was Taylor's dad." She said, "No, it wasn't." I go, "Yeah, it was." She goes, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Only a dad would look at you right now and say, and come over and have that conversation with you." And she's like, "I don't believe you." And I said, "You don't have to believe me, but I'm not waiting 2 hours. So let's get back to the hotel." So we go back to the hotel, pull it up. Sure enough, we Googled, and it was his dad, or Taylor's dad. And she just like, "Oh, that's the greatest thing. I met Taylor's dad." And now her whole memory of that interaction has changed because she figured out who it was. And so that was one of the ones that I think, um, that I remember, that blows me away from her younger. Later on, it's we had the opportunity to go with our my nephews and a couple of concerts, and experiencing that. But that'll always be the first one. I think that's the special one.
The life that you are modeling yourself in for your daughter to see, that person that you want her to be, she's going to have her own life. But when you assess the person that you're wanting to portray to her, how do you feel like as a father you've done in that department?
Mixed. I think we all, especially in this business, as we know, it's a crazy business. I there were times that you disappoint them. I can't make it here. I can't make it there. I can't make it to this play or this sports function or this and that. Because you're freelancers. If you don't work, you don't make money, and you can't make money. You can't pay for the sports. You can't pay for the things. And so I think there are times that I felt like I let her down. And that always broke my heart. But I also know that I gave her memories that nobody else gets, that nobody else can do. And we always, and I've explained it to her now, I've always treated her like a school teacher, in that during the school year, we didn't do so much. During the summer, we did a lot. So we traveled a lot. We did a lot of activities. And that was one of the things I've expressed upon her. I won't leave her $1 million, but I'll leave her a million memories and experiences. And that's what I want to give to my daughter. And that's what I keep continue wanting to do. And I think she's starting to realize that. And that's probably the greatest compliment I can take at this point.
And how would you rate it as the greatest feeling that you've ever felt?
So far, yeah, it's but there's still more. I mean, I can't imagine when she becomes a parent how that's going to be. I can't imagine when she walks down the aisle, or hopefully I'm walking with her, but she she becomes that, those milestones in life. So it's special now. I hope it just gets better.
You can't imagine those things because they haven't happened yet. But we started out this conversation in you saying how in the business of sports broadcasting, there has to be this level of embracing the unknown. But here's what I see someone that has embraced change and is open to whatever happens. That could be in your personal life with the future that we don't know what that's going to look like, or that could be in the business of sports media where things are constantly changing. But I see that one common denominator for you, and that is whatever it is, you're up for it. And I feel that there is a parallel there. How much do you see that between you as a dad and you in the business of sports media, and being okay with where you are, but always actively looking for and being open to whatever comes your way next?
I think there's a lot of things that are parallel, and I think there's a sports media is such that I go back, and it was one of those things that I remember in my life is, we sit around and we as freelancers, I like to say we're always begging for the next show, making those calls and bugging CPs and different people, networking and trying to find and it's okay to hear no, because it may not be the right time, but there might be another opportunity the next time you call, and the next time, and things may change. And I think that one of those things that I keep pressing upon is that there's so many different avenues and do it so many different ways. And will I ever produce Monday Night Football? Probably not. Um, I worked with that group and those people, and they're talented, and they're at where they're at. And a lot of that has nothing to do with my ability. It doesn't have to do with whether or not I could. It's is that what's in the cards? Is that where my network is going to take me? Is that where it's going to be? And um, the fact that I can be in this business and stay in this business, and my running joke is I've lived in Florida all my life, other than my professional life, except for college. Never had to dig a ditch to stay my family in fed and a roof over their head. And to me, that's the greatest blessing. I don't need trophies. I need, in all these things. I've made a career with something that I love and something I'm passionate about. And there's not one day that I go to work that I feel like I don't want to do this today. Um, and it doesn't matter if it's the worst game you've ever done or it's the best game you ever done. Because at the end of the day, I'm doing sports TV. I mean, it's not brain surgery, it's not accounting, it's not any of these other things. It's where I would pay to be if I wasn't doing what I was doing. And so if it's you know, the changing of having to do Remy's as opposed to having to be on site, if it's the changes of doing dual feeds rather than side by sides, if it's whatever those changes are, they're minor inconveniences in order to keep doing what you dream of doing and what you want to keep doing. I don't
As
know if that
we
answered your question or not, but
It did. And as we wrap up this conversation, one of the things that I can pick up from you, Major, is that you're happy. You can always be shooting for the stars. As you said, there are these events that are at the top of the game, and you've done a lot of things at the top of the game. And even with that, maybe you haven't done Monday Night Football, and yes, you could. And those are great people over there, but you can still be proud of yourself. You can still be proud with what you've done, while at the same time realizing, okay, sure, as somebody who's constantly, as you said, in this business, we're always constantly networking, on the go, being a workaholic. We want to always strive for more. But what I feel like over the years you've realized is you can still do that, but also be happy with where you are. And I think that's hard for a lot of people in this business. And
I I tell everybody that the hardest part that we do as freelancers to ourselves is we look ahead. Where's my
yes,
next gig? Where's my next this? Where's my next this? Where next? Look back. Look where you've been. Look what you're doing. And I say this to people all the time. It's you know, you go into a month and you go, oh my gosh, I only got 5 days of work this month. How am I going to pay the bills? And then you get to the end of the month and you look back and you go, oh my God, I worked 22 days. I
yes.
miss this though. I miss this with my family. I miss this with the stuff that goes on. And that's the part that's that double-edged sword that we always look at ourselves post and go, man, you know what? Did I really need to do that? Well, at the moment I did because I didn't know that I was going to have 4 or 5 other things. And I think the older we get, the more we appreciate not the journey in front of us, but the journey behind us and where we're at now. And to me, it's why I'm here at UCF is I want to be able to help and mentor the next group of people that are have the fortunate to succeed and be in this business. But at the same time, I look back and I don't think I appreciated as much at the time what I was involved with. But I think we all do that as humans, not just as freelancers, but to be able to say, I was at this spot at this time, and I was at this, here and there, and all the different things. Um, I look back and I did preseason NFL in Green Bay, Lambeau Field. I remember walking out on the field, but now it's like, well, people talk about they've never been at the Holy Grail, and it's like I was there. And you know what? I don't think I got on my knees and picked up some grass and paid homage the way I should have, but I don't think. But I looking back, I was like, wow, that's special. That was probably more special than I realized. So
Well, special would be the feeling I think the students at UCF feel when they realize how lucky they are to have you as one of their mentors. You've done so much and will continue to do so much for so many people in this industry. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here. And I know you're not one for the limelight. I appreciate you doing this. It's my humble way of thanking you and allowing people to see there are some really good people in this industry, and you are one of them, Major.
I
Major Howe,
appreciate
I'm
it.
Bryan Fenley, man.
But
Thanks so
before you go,
much.
I'm going to tell you, I said this before and I'm going to say it
Okay.
so you record it. I appreciate, I've enjoyed listening to your podcast across the way, and I've shared it with my students. And I think that your ability to ask the questions and have the interviews was something that scared the crap out of me. But I appreciate you including me in it. And I do that, as I said, I will share this with my students because I think it's such a great learning experience for them, the way that you handle yourself and the questions that you ask and the type of questions you ask. And I appreciate the research and the take me all the way back to high school in this moment. And it was an honor and a privilege. So I appreciate the opportunity.
I appreciate you saying that. And I'll leave you with this because the most important thing for me in these conversations, and sure, maybe this isn't the most comfortable setting, but I take a lot of pride in creating a situation, a back and forth where you do feel comfortable and you can be yourself on the other side of this interview. And you were you in the purest sense. And when you're able to do that, that's the best compliment I could ever get because I know the conversation is going to be great. You were great. Major, thanks again for doing this.
My pleasure. Thank you.